Hey guys, welcome back to Big Shoulders. As I promised per last episode, we actually have guests again, and I'm working real hard to make this show worth your while. And I could not be happier and more excited. Probably our biggest guest to date. Today, I have the honor of speaking with City Pop DJ Van. Is it Pagam or Paugam? I don't know if I've
You
ever been
know,
able to.
it's people say it many different ways. You can just say whatever. I don't really mind. I say Paugam, but you
Paugam.
know, everybody has a different way of saying it. It's
Well, I
totally
want
fine
to
with
just
me.
make sure that I'm pronouncing it correctly, man, because I've known you a few years now. I'm like, I probably should know this one. But yeah, Van is on with us today. He's one of my favorite people. He's one of my favorite Chicagoans, and so yeah, he's graced us with his time today. So this is pretty great. Thank you for coming on, Van. I appreciate it,
Oh,
man.
thank you for having me, and I really appreciate it. Super humbled by your words.
Oh, well, you've earned all of it. You're what I love about you most, man, is you know, people know you probably best as a city pop DJ, and certainly one of the people that kind of resurrected this. I wouldn't say dead genre of pop music, but it's not like it was humming along. And so I think it's pretty
Um,
cool anytime somebody finds something that they discover something or they take something that they already loved and they just throw themselves into it completely. And it really seems to have worked out, and now there's people who never would have given maybe city pop a second thought, and now it's everywhere. There's literally um, entire events that revolve around it. So it's pretty awesome, man. Before we get into too much, though, the big three questions that I like to ask my guests, and I'm getting back to, I do realize I forgot the last couple times, but to kind of give some of the Chicago focus sense of you, and there are no wrong answers to these questions. They're real arbitrary, but they're arbitrary Chicago questions. And we'll start off with number one: Cubs or Sox?
when I first got to Chicago, I lived in Wicker Park in 2011, and it was a Cubs kind of area. So for me, it's gonna be the Cubs.
Cubs. All right, great.
Yeah.
Coke or Pepsi?
I mean, I don't try to drink much pop, but I would go with Coke.
Coke. All right, and you said it correctly. It's pop, not soda. All
I used to
right,
say soda because I'm from Florida, and people would
right.
correct me up here. I'm like, oh, pop, all right, I guess it's pop.
Yeah, depend. Yeah, if you're on either the coast, it's soda. If you're in the middle, it's pop for sure.
Yeah,
And last one: deep dish or tavern style?
deep dish. Yeah, deep dish for sure.
All right. I love to get these insights into where people are at on their pizza, on their ball,
Mm.
and their soda. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything. I think it's fun. But yeah, I guess you said you mentioned you're from Florida. Um, can you give us kind of an idea? How did a Florida guy like you end up DJing and living in Chicago? How'd that happen, man?
One of my good roommates because I was living in South Beach for the majority of my life. She was a good roommate of mine. She was from Chicago. She We lived together for like 5 years in Miami, and so she moved back up here. And a couple years later, she called me. She's like, "Hey, why don't you move up here?" I was like, I was kind of tired of the whole South Florida scene. I don't know. I guess kind of tiring because it's only one season down there. It's summer all year long, so it's like you don't see seasons. So I jumped at the chance to come up here, and as soon as I got here, I fell in love with the city, and I got to see snow, which was fun. And I've been here ever since. It's gonna be 14 years, I think, next February. So yeah, it's I've been here for quite a long time, and I love the city.
Great, man. Yeah, that's great. It is. It's one of those things where Chicago, we don't do as good a job as, say, LA or New York in telling everyone how awesome we are. And so we don't have a similar shine. But what's cool about that is as far as major American cities go, we're kind of less so today, but historically, we've kind of been America's best kept secret. There is this
Mm.
major metropolis with wide-reaching, reliable public transportation, super walkable, incredibly great food, culture, architecture, and it's right in the middle of the country. And it's I've met people, so many people that didn't give us a second thought and just happened to have a layover here or stop by here. They're here on
Yeah.
a work trip, and they're just blown away. And it's crazy how many of those people just end up sticking around. So good for you for giving it a shot. I know it's the winters are challenging. I mean, not all of them are terrible, but if you're
Mm.
from Florida, you're from California, you're from Arizona, uh,
Yeah.
a Chicago winter is one hell of an adjustment.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I arrived during the blizzard of 2011, and I had never seen snow. So, there was snow stacked taller than I was, and it was kind of a culture shock. But I think dealing with that builds character, and I think this is an important part of personal development, being able to persevere against the elements, which are, part of nature. It's something that we have to do. But in the South, in Florida and Miami, and all that, you don't have to ever deal with anything like that. So I feel like, I don't know, people end up dumber. I don't know. That's just my perception. I'm
Well,
from Miami, so I think I could
sure,
say that.
but I mean, yeah, and this is I think there's here's what I figured out because I bounce now between LA and Chicago. And what I've learned is how much weather influences a given culture. That there is a greater sense of urgency in a place like Chicago because once winter hits, it's there and you're just counting down to get to spring. And then you get to
Mm.
spring and you're sort of counting down to get to summer. And then you hit summer and then you only have so many, days, months of summer. And then it's
Mm.
back to fall. So there's a sense of urgency that I notice from Chicagoans from being from Chicago than a place, say, the other place that I live, being LA, where winter never comes. We claim that it does. It does get chillier. It actually, believe it or not, does get chilly December, January, February, but it's nothing like Chicago, obviously. And because winter never comes, there's a different sense of urgency. We really take the weather in Southern California for granted because it's just, for the most part, great all the time. Whereas in
Mm.
Chicago, the old adage is true that don't like the weather in Chicago, just wait a minute because it'll
Mhm.
change. I love bringing
Yeah.
my Cali family to Chicago because we will have literally over the course of a couple of days, 2, 3 different types of weather. We got caught
Mm.
we're on the west side and we just got caught out of nowhere. Just a rainstorm just out of nowhere hit us. And, we just huddled up in, what was it? Standing Passengers coffee shop there. I think that's
Mm.
on Chicago. And, we just got some really great dark matter coffee, a local Chicago brand, had a good time. And then waited a few minutes and then it was sunshine again. But yeah, weather affects a place. So, um, nothing against Chicago is nothing against people from Miami because actually Miami is a place I
Mm.
really want to visit because I've never been there. But what's interesting about Miami is I get really mixed messages about Miami, and that kind of reminds me about being a Chicagoan because there's so many people who've never been to Chicago who seem to have a really strong opinion about it. Is that how
Mhm.
it is
Yeah.
with Miami?
Um, I wouldn't say that. I knew a lot of people from Chicago who had moved to Miami, Puerto
Okay.
Ricans especially, but yeah, I don't think anyone has that big of an opinion other than what the media tries to, play into people's fears about it, about crime and all that. But I mean, looking past that, it's one of the best cities in the world. It's been voted top city in the United States by Condé
Yeah.
Nast 7 times in a row. I
Well,
mean,
yeah, it's fun to watch the rest of the country kind of catch up. Like I said, again, Chicago, I think it's the last discovery of America, and people are starting to figure it out, which is great.
mhm.
So, kind of back to your story here. So you end up getting roommates with a friend. You come from Miami. How long were you in when you first came to Chicago? Did you come here with the intention of doing music? Did you come here for school? Was it a job? Was it just a change of pace? Like what when so you're here now in Chicago. what is it that you're doing? What is it that you
Um,
are aspiring to do?
well, I wanted to do events because I was an event kind of planner in Miami. And I would do kind of like artsy events in Wynwood and North Beach. And that Wynwood is like, I would say the Logan Square of Miami, where all like
Okay.
the hip events are. So I kind of wanted to continue that. But I fell into DJing again because I was DJ in Miami too. I didn't plan on doing that, but you kind of fall into these circles that, are on your frequency. And I've always been kind of like a music oriented person, even though I'm not a musician. I've always had kind of good taste in music. I like to think that, and
Hmm.
it's kind of helped me get into certain circles and kind of find my way here. And I didn't really have much of a plan when I got here. I just kind of went with, the flow of things, and thankfully, I got placed in a lot of good situations where led me to where I am today, which I'm pretty happy where I am, and I think there's a lot of room for growth in this city, and I'm really appreciative of all the people I've met like you, who have given me a chance and give me kind of a small platform to talk about these things that I think are important. And yeah, I love this city, and that's pretty much the basis of why I stay here because there's just a lot of good people that I've met, and I think that that is an important part of wherever you are. If the vibe of people isn't right, you kind of want to move on, and that's why I stay here. I think there's the right frequency, and it keeps me anchored.
Well, no, no problem. I mean, as I've sort of noticed, even though I'm not in Chicago all the time, like obviously you are, it's never left me. It's one of those things where maybe I'm biased because I'm from there, maybe, but I've lived in different places. I've lived in LA, I've lived in New York, I've lived in Europe, I've been in South America, I've been different places, and I all of those places, I think it needs to be said, are unique to themselves, all have something to offer, but there really is only one Chicago, and it's something
Mhm.
that until you experience it, I don't know if I can say it to you, but it's something that has to be experienced for sure. It makes
Mm.
me really happy that because as Midwesterners, we're conditioned to think warmer climates are always better. Warmer climates are just inherently have more opportunity, and obviously the winters are way easier. So I get why
Um,
I have snow bunnies in my family that spend their winters in Florida, Arizona, California. I get it, but I've never seen anything close to the fact that Chicago is it's clean, green, friendly, incredible food because it doesn't have I shouldn't say it doesn't have an entertainment industry. We absolutely do. We have theater, we have improv, we have stand-up comedy, we do a
mm.
lot of TV and film. It doesn't permeate Chicago though, as in deep in the culture like it does in LA, and I think that gives Chicago just a little bit more friendliness. So, um, so yeah, you came to Chicago. You're kind of getting your bearings. The goal was to do events. Were you already mixing? Were you already sort of messing around as a DJ, as a composer when you got here? Was that always a hobby, or is that something that started in Chicago?
No, I had always been kind of making mixtapes when I was younger, and that transitioned to like DJing as DJs. And later on, once I moved here, I started getting into vinyl with the Japanese city pop stuff. So I've always been kind of inclined to mix and to make playlists and to try to create vibes for people. That's always been kind of a part of my personality. And so it's just kind of grown more since I've gotten here. And it's been kind of, the support I've gotten to continue it has been really, really good. So I've just kind of put my main focus into being a DJ, but now I want to, kind of expand the idea of what a DJ can be, because I
Sure.
think there's a really limited view of kind of the superficial nature of DJing and the egos and the kind of dancing festival DJ kind of personality that isn't the embodiment of every DJ. There's it's such a broad art form that is doesn't get enough appreciation for what it is. And I
Right.
feel like what I'm trying to do now is kind of add a new perspective to it so people can understand that, hey, playing music and being a DJ doesn't have to be one thing or another. You can forge your own path, and that's what I'm trying to do now with mixing DJing and vinyl.
No, no, that's awesome.
Mm.
I think that's really admirable. It's one of those things where whether it be music or I see this a lot, obviously with TV and film, we take it totally for granted because we could just press a button and boom, there's instant
Mm.
entertainment, and there isn't really a deep understanding or thought process about how did this song get in my ear or how did this movie get in front of my eyes, and because there seems to be more walls coming down, people can get to know guys like you and others. And I think that's kind of the fun part of it. Like one of the things we've talked about in previous conversations, not on here, but just personally, is obviously our deep love for Japanese culture, for Japanese music, and all of those things. For you, like were your mixtapes and the things you were doing, were they always oriented towards like J music or city pop, or was that something that again sort of hatched in Chicago? What led you to city pop and really just sort of doubling down into that particular genre?
I mean, as far back as I can remember, like I remember, I'm old enough to be to remember being in front of a tape deck, listening to the radio and like pressing record on a blank tape and recording radio segments and having that to listen back to. So as far as I remember, I've always loved making mixtapes, and that kind of just stayed with me throughout the entirety of my life. And I've always look back fondly on anime and Dragon Ball Z and all of that because that was kind of what I would turn to when I was in elementary school and middle school. So these things kind of comforted me. So there's a
Mhm.
nostalgic kind of aspect to Japanese culture that I look back fondly on it. And so when I found City Pop, it was kind of this mix of nostalgic. It had a nostalgic element to it to where it kind of brought me back to elementary school and middle school and coming home after school and watching Dragon Ball Z or Pokemon or whatever, and all of this kind of creates like a blanket of like warm memories to kind of
Mhm.
make you feel better. And so listening to this music kind of made me reminisce about the past. So it kind of drew me in, and it gave me, like a renewed kind of focus on what I want to, what I want to do with my life and what I want to concentrate on and what I want to develop and what I want to share with others. Because the sentiment has been kind of echoed from a lot of people that, hey, this does have a nostalgic effect on us and it does
Mhm.
make us feel good. So I think this is what drew me to Japanese music and to kind of develop this uh, brand of DJing that I have now. So,
No, you're right about that. I recall in like sort of like early days of YouTube finding like whole albums on YouTube,
um,
just because I had because back in the day you could people could upload like entire um, series of old obscure
mm,
anime that fan subbers had done in the 90s that everybody forgot about except for us real otaku, us deep seated
yeah,
weeb, and that would lead me to entire albums of city pop. And you're right, there's something about city pop, and like you said, it's something that everybody kind of feels even if we can't put it into words. It's a nostalgia, a longing for a time that we it feels so real, it feels so familiar, it feels so good for a time that we didn't grow up in. Like there's this nostalgia
mm,
and a longing for a adolescence or an early 20s, uh, when we were all just kids back in Japan, which of course we weren't. But it does speak
yeah,
to the power of that music. A lot of you know, pop music can either be really sort of strong and impactful, or it just can kind of be throwaway and bubblegum. But there seems to be something about city pop that has a real emotion to it, that it evokes a sense of love, romance, longing, loss, and yeah, and also just of course fun. And I think it's something that everybody can kind of relate to. So the fact that you delved into it and you've introduced so many people, like I was aware of it, but my depth and breadth of knowledge of city pop artists is so much deeper, specifically because of you. You know, I'd find your mixes and I'd be like, oh, who's that? Like, okay, I knew this first song and the second one, but then the next six, I'm like, who is this? And so I have to thank you for that, because like my appreciation for the genre only got deeper. What was can you kind of explain to us what was the timeline? So you're in Chicago and you're doing mixtapes again, you're doing stuff that's related to city pop. What's the distance between kind of getting your bearings in Chicago, making mixes, making tapes, and like your first set? Like at what point did you kind of realize, oh, people are actually interested in what I'm doing here? Like how did that come about?
Oh, I mean, when I first got here, I was really focusing on vaporwave music, which I thought was like a new kind of a new thing, which I loved. I loved the aesthetics, and I loved the kind of sound
I still listen.
manipulation. And there was like, do you? I mean, there's a lot of good old vaporwave, newer vaporwave, not so much. But and vaporwave played a lot on nostalgia also, so it was kind of like some carryover into later on once I started doing city pop. So I mean, I did vaporwave for a good 4 or 5 years. It really never took me anywhere. It was just more for my personal enjoyment. But yeah, there was a lot of play on nostalgia and like 80s corporate kind of music and all of that mixed in with old commercials, and it had this kind of like retro punk kind of feel, like
Hmm.
cyberpunky. I thought it was really, really cool at the time. That's what I put a lot of my effort into, but eventually that led me in 2016 is when I started looking into samples that Vaporwave was using, and one of the first ones was Plastic Love, and so I started looking into buying these records in 2016, and they were being sold for dirt cheap. And, like no one in Japan really cared about it, and it wasn't really in their kind of cultural kind of paradigm for the time. They have forgotten about the music. It's a remnant of the bubble era, which they kind of sour about. And so, they were selling these records for dirt cheap, and I ended up buying, a couple hundred for, a really good price that right now they're worth probably five, six, 7 times as much. But
Sure.
yeah, it took me a good 6 years before I started seeing any notoriety online. And then maybe 2 years after that is when I started DJing around the city in 2018, I think. And I've been DJing around Chicago ever since. So it's been a journey for sure.
Well, that's it's amazing that you basically were getting these things for dirt cheap, and by the time you were done and rocking, there were so much more. Is You said there? Well, let me ask this: in terms of one of the things that seems to be making a lot of careers that 15, 20 years ago would have been impossible, the internet and social media really seem to have made possible. Was there a particular platform that really helped you kind of get your music out? I know it can be finicky because you are dealing with music that is copyrighted. But what was sort of, was there a particular either venue in Chicago? Was there a particular platform online? What allowed you to get? Because I remember catching your stuff either through YouTube or Facebook, I think, and obviously now your other places. But can you refresh me, like where were you able to get your stuff up that people were like, okay, who is this guy? What's he doing? What is this? It's awesome. I want more.
I would say YouTube. I started on YouTube because I would get the vinyl and I'd rip it to MP3, and it'd be low quality. There wouldn't be like high definition rips because I didn't have money back then. So I would make these mixtapes, and I was the first one kind of making mixtapes of Japanese city pop.
Mm.
No one was doing that before me, and I don't know of anyone who had thought that this genre could be DJ'd.
Right.
And I started, buying these records and kind of, I didn't know Japanese at the time. My Japanese is kind of intermediate right now, but I still know most of the words now because I've been with the Japanese culture center here. But back then it was just kind of going based on like, oh, this song has this kind of mood, it has this kind of vibe, and this is how I would make these mixtapes, and nobody was calling it city pop. But I found a really old article because I was looking up the artist, and I forgot what website it was on. It was like some music equipment website where they quoted it as city pop, and I started calling these mixes city pop. And before you know it, I had maybe 5 followers, 5 subscribers, and that turned into 20,000, 60,000. A couple years later, I had almost 100,000 before the channel went down. So I would say YouTube is what really made me kind of stand out and get an audience.
That's awesome. And like
So,
for people who want to, I guess, follow and support you now, what platforms? So like, how can people
mm,
follow you and get to your gigs and watch you do your thing and just in general support what you're doing? Where were you at?
I'm really bad at organizing where I'm going to be playing or what I'm going to be doing.
Are you at least
Sometimes I
are you
post
on
it.
Instagram? Are you on
I'm on
Spotify?
Instagram. Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I don't always post where I'm going to be because I just kind of been doing it for so many years. Sometimes I just don't make flyers anymore. I just expect people to know. But every third Saturday, I'm at Murasaki Sake Lounge in Streeterville at 10 p.m.
That is one of that was
Um,
before even before I knew that you did sets there. That was it's probably in my top three lounges in the city of
mm,
Chicago. If you're
oh,
in
it's a great
Chicago,
place.
Murasaki is right. It's right on East Ontario in downtown, like
Mm,
you said, Streeterville. It's one of my favorite places in not just
oh
the
yeah,
city, the world. So you're
mm.
there every third Sunday,
Every third Saturday,
every third
10
Saturday.
p.m.
And I've seen you. I know that you've done sets at one of my other favorite, I guess, bar lounges in Chicago Chinatown, which is Nine Bar, the Blade Runner
Mm,
inspired bar. I love
mm.
that place, and I've heard your sets there too. Yeah, that was an amazing set. So are you kind of all over the city? You're in Chinatown. You're in Murasaki. You have your. Did you do stuff at the Whistler? I can't remember.
Yeah, I still do stuff with the Whistler. They've been working with me since 2018, and they've supported what I've been doing. So I really appreciate the Whistler. And they're a craft cocktail institution in Chicago. When I first got here in 2011, I was going there, and I was just so amazed at what they were doing with cocktails and service, and it left a really big impression on me. And then years later, I got to DJ there, and I still DJ there. So I'm really appreciative of them giving me the opportunity to play, and giving me this kind of outlet to express myself in this way, because Japanese music, a lot of venues that I initially reached out to years ago, you know they didn't think it would work because Japanese music, it's a hit or miss for most people.
Hmm.
But Whistler was one of the first venues to be like, okay, you can go ahead and do it, and I've been doing it ever since. So yeah, I'm really thankful for them.
That's awesome. I love that.
Mhm.
Like I know that we kind of talked about what the nostalgia factor with regard to city pop. So many of us in the West, our first exposures to anything Japanese culture is almost always anime. Is that really that sort of like the nucleus for you? Like as a kid watching Dragon Ball Z, did it I don't know travel with you through school? Were you like because I know some people that once they figure out that they discovered Dragon Ball Z, they discovered Cowboy Bebop, they discovered One Piece, whatever it is, they kind of go the extra mile and they like try to like learn Japanese, or they try to find like we have in Chicago out in Arlington Heights, we have what used to be called Yaohan, which is now a Mitsuya marketplace. And the bookstore there, like I just went down a rabbit hole. I started taking Japanese classes and trying to go buy magazines and seeing how much I could translate, and
Oh,
even going so far as just getting raw Japanese, like untranslated anime. For you, like how deep into, I guess what we used to call it otaku culture, now I guess we're all weebs. How deep did you get into that, or was it more casual for you?
I've always just had a really deep appreciation for like the heavily philosophical animes like Ghost in the Shell,
Yes.
and Cowboy Bebop. They're just so meaningful, and there's so many, deep themes of, things that you don't really learn as a child or when you're in your like younger years. And a lot of these animes help me to build the person I am today, personality wise. And so, I've always loved those animes. I try to get into other ones. It's just hard for me to get into anything newer nowadays,
Oh, you and me
because I
both,
have
brother.
such a strong passion for, Ghost in the Shell and Cowboy Bebop. And those two specifically really shaped a lot of who I am. And it's always been a love of that. I've never got into manga too much, but I love other aspects of Japanese culture. A lot of their philosophy on, kami and the spirit realm and things like that. So I have a really deep appreciation for a lot of Japanese culture. And what led me to start learning Japanese, of course, was city pop. So when I started going to the Japanese Culture Center here, I started taking language classes, and I got to be good friends with the people who work there. And well, fast forward a couple of years, and I work for them now. So
Oh,
it's really
awesome.
cool. They support me, and I get to experience Japanese culture on many levels now, and it really helps me to understand the music even more, which is ultimately my goal for improving my understanding of the music, and showing that my appreciation isn't like skin deep. I really do have a love for it that goes beyond the superficial, and I try to prove that to everyone as much as I can by respecting the culture and showing that I respect it. So yeah.
No, well, I mean, you've achieved all those things, man. I mean, I don't think anybody goes and finds an obscure foreign form of
Mhm.
pop music, and unless they really are intrigued and
Mhm.
care about it. And again,
Mhm.
it's years later now, and it's so obvious that you
Mhm.
do care about it. That the depth and breadth of that passion and interest is just seeps out. I think it's awesome that
Yeah,
you're working with the JCC, the Japanese Cultural Center.
yeah, they're
Um,
amazing. Yeah, if it had been anyone else, I think they would have quit because I've had a lot of trials with this music. It's been a little bit of a test, but I'm still here and I still enjoy the music. And if I didn't care about it as much as I do, I probably would have quit a long time ago because I've had to deal with a lot of bullshit. So that's
right.
just the reality of it,
But yeah, yeah, that's the thing too, is that nobody sees in really any sort of any career, but certainly any artistic career, nobody sees the harder times, the nonsense
Mm.
sometimes you have to deal with, and of course it exists. There are lows. One of the things though that has impressed me are some of the real highs that you've had. Is haven't you've been to Japan, and didn't you do some type of anniversary albums with some like legendary city pop artists? Was it for Victor Japan?
I've done remixes for Victor Japan. I did a Akimoto Kaoru remix of like three of her songs from her album Cologne.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I've been lucky that you know, they've given me some opportunities to kind of work on some of these older albums. And I got to meet Tetsuji Hayashi, which is one of the premier producers of city pop back in the day, and he still kind
Sure.
of is. But he produced Kikuchi Momoko's Adventure, so like that's a really big one. And so yeah, I went to their anniversary show, and it was a lot of old city pop singers all kind of coming out with their hits, and at the end they all sang "Stay with Me" together on stage, which was amazing. And I
Wow.
got to go backstage and meet some of them. Yeah, it was a pretty big honor. So that was probably one of the highlights of my entire city pop career for sure.
Nice, nice, nice. In In terms of like, you're talking about, you talked about how you kind of started. Sorry, my dog is. There's an ambulance going by. Anyways, um, boy, you're okay. He's adorable. Anyway, um, so one of the things, let's go back to buddy. Thank you. Okay, he's lucky. He's cute. One of the things you talked about was in terms of like how to sort of bring DJing to the next level that people don't understand. It's not about it's not just hitting a button and playing a song. I mean, you put time into these mixes and what goes into the layering and all of that. Are there specific DJs that you find yourself having been really heavily influenced by, or did your style and what you do with your mixes, is it something that you just kind of patchworked together, or are there people that you can say, yeah, I really like so and so and so and so, I feel like I'm heavily influenced by those folks? How is it for you?
I mean, when I started, I just kind of was winging it. And I think my style is definitely unique in that, I don't really, I didn't start beat matching this music because you can't really beat match city pop because it's
Right.
multiple genre styles, it's all types of BPMs. So there's no way for you to beat match. So I kind of came up with a system of blending songs together by their mood and kind of like by their vibe. So my style of mixing is more based on vibe and and who's in the room, and it's very situational. So
Mm,
I never have a playlist. I have the records in front of me or whatever behind me, and I just go by how I'm feeling at the moment, who's around me, if I can hear conversation. All of that influences me, and I kind of express it through whatever song I'm playing because that specific song has a mood that I feel connects to the energy in the room, and I feel like that's an important part of DJing that is lost to a lot of people, and that they don't fully appreciate that.
right.
Because for a lot of people, they think DJing is just pressing a button and dancing, and that's not DJing to me. It never has been, and that's why I kind of want to bring back this aspect of the ritualism and the importance of being able to read a room and to match a vibe and to cater to specific kinds of environments and moods. I think when everyone in a room is on the same frequency together and the music can kind of amplify that frequency, it creates kind of like somewhat like magic. And that feeling is something I try to strive for in all of my DJ sets. It's not always appreciated, but when it works, it works.
So yeah, that's really cool. I had never really thought of that. So
Mm.
your approach is like truly intuitive. Like you're plugging in, like you said, to the vibe of the room, to the people in the room, and you're basically sort of deducing a set list based on the night, the venue, the
Mm.
individuals in the room. That's really
Yeah,
cool, man. That's so
I
cool.
I've never repeated a playlist because it's always just moment by moment for me. And I try to tie in a lot of Japanese philosophy on the moment because vinyl records, when the needle goes through the grooves, that record is permanently kind of damaged in a way, so you'll never hear that record the same way again. So it's
Mm,
kind of like a very special thing that you're hearing that record in this specific time, and it can never be replicated again. And that is kind of like a beautiful way of looking at it. And in the moment when someone's at a bar, they don't think of that, obviously, but I'm thinking of that. So I'm trying to, kind of project this this kind of outlook that I'm feeling into other people, so they can, kind of receive that energy through what I'm doing.
right.
So yeah, I have a really specific view of DJing that I think is kind of unique to me. I think. Well, I don't know of anyone else who has that, but I'm sure
I've
someone does.
I've never heard anybody articulate it that way, and I think it's great. You are truly crafting a specific experience again based on the room, the people, the vibe. It reminds me a lot of, and I've been missing it a lot lately. I did a lot of black box theater in Chicago. Obviously in Chicago, we're a blue collar town. You can, like yourself, you can You can make a mix and find a venue and just start spinning and see what happens. You can
Mm.
also in the theater community, you can find storefront theaters and write something and put something up for a few weekends. Far north, far
Oh
west, far
yeah,
side. Um, but
for sure.
like your sets, and it doesn't. And this is true for almost every show. Even if you are going completely by the numbers, it's not recorded. People file into a theater, and actors make different choices sometimes. On their
Mm.
characters and within the script. That performance is specific to that evening for that specific audience, and I love hearing that. That's kind of what you're basically crafting for your audiences too. It's a unique experience. It's happening now. Enjoy it now, because once it's over, it's kind of off to the ether. I think that is so beautiful. I love that a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate that you appreciate it. And I've come to a point in my career where I don't actively look for gigs. If it comes to me, it comes to me. But I live under the philosophy that you gotta be on a frequency, and that frequency will attract the opportunities that are right for you. So I don't force myself into any sort of DJ situation where I know people aren't going to appreciate it.
Sure.
So I do what I do. I have the gigs I have now, and I'm really happy with them. But I don't try to insert myself into bars or situations where I know it's not going to work, because it's a specific kind of thing I'm trying to do. So I have to protect that also, because if you're just too whatever about it, then you lose some of that exclusivity, that
Mhm.
intention that you want to focus on. But yeah.
Again, that's also really admirable, because it seems like with most things, and I wouldn't say necessarily most art forms, but in entertainment, there's always this desire to grow and scale and build it
Mm.
up, and that can work for certain things, but the type of thing that you do, it's like it is more niche. It's certainly way bigger than it was obviously 10 years ago, but it is more niche. You have
Mm.
found venues that support it, and then because of stuff like this, your people find you. That's one thing that I really do love about the social media age, is you don't have to do what we were told for so long is, what do they want, what should
Mm.
we do for them. It's more like, no, let your love lead. I'm a big believer in letting your love lead, letting your passion
I
lead,
agree. Yeah.
doubling down on that, and then you create this thing that, you go back to 2014. If so, you would have said, to see this guy over here, he's taking Japanese pop from the 80s and he's going to turn it into a movement. You'd be like, okay, yeah, yeah, whatever. And that's also why you should never listen to people. You should just let your love
Mm.
lead. And I think it's
That's
beautiful that
very true.
you found your venues, you found your people, and you're cooking. You're doing your thing, that way. Outside of music, I'd be curious to get a sense of, like, other influences. Are there, and this can be Japanese, it can be otherwise. Outside of maybe the music realm, what type of, like, are there particular type of film that you like? Are there particular, like, are there directors, actors, writers, novelists, or let's say, even other artists within the music
Mhm.
realm that you like? Well, like, are there movies, music, TV that you like that people would really be surprised that Van, the DJ, really likes? Like, what's is there anything out there that's, because I know there's stuff that I like a lot that people like, you watch that, and I was just
Yeah.
curious, like, what are some things, other types of, let's maybe start with music, outside of, like, what other type of genre of music do you like?
Well, I mean, I love Prince. Prince has always been a really big influence for me, stylistically and musically, and just his personality and the way he was able to just embody his true self. I think that was a big influence on me, and it still is today. I love a lot of '80s music. The Smiths were a big influence on me, and they still are. Um, no, I got into electronic music in the mid 2000s. Like M83 was big on me. I love beach house. I like a lot of indie pop music. Yeah, mostly if it's good, I think I'll listen to anything. I'm not like, biased against any kind of music unless it's kind of like lowest common denominator stuff that's like top 40s that it has no meaning, it has no depth to it. A million writers wrote it, that kind of thing. I love when an artist writes their own things and produces it, and and you can tell it's just music from their being, their true expression. When someone's making music to make money, I can kind of pick up on that for some reason.
Yeah,
So as
yeah,
long as
yeah.
the music is good and you could tell that it's made with intention,
Hmm.
I'll listen to anything.
Cool.
Film wise, I love Blade Runner. Blade Runner is probably one of the most influential films. I love anything Kubrick. I would say, yeah, I'm not too big into a lot of films lately. I don't know. I feel like there's been a lack of good movies. I think there's a
I
lot of
can,
big budget movies that are visually stunning for sure,
sure.
but
I'd be happy to send you stuff because you and I are on really the same wavelength with like Blade Runner for me from '82 is frankly
mm,
it's in my top three of all time.
oh, for sure.
I've been on a real tear on my other show on this channel, Cult of Film, with a guy that is now DJing as a future funk DJ specifically because of you, Justin
Really?
Davis, who goes by Night Patrol,
Oh
NIT.
yeah, yeah, I know. Great guy.
Yeah, he absolutely he wouldn't be doing what he's doing had you not been a major influence. And so
Amazing.
he thanks you for that. And he and I have been going down the rabbit hole on a lot of Yoshiaki Kawajiri anime films and been
Mm,
having a lot of fun with that. And we're going to dig into some other Japanese and other non-Japanese cinema, but I have a sense of kind of what you like. You said you like. I love Kubrick
mm.
as well. I love the original Blade Runner. I'll send you stuff that I think might
Yeah,
be
for
in your
sure.
wheel. I love sharing films with people, and I kind of feel like I've learned so much from you about music, about this this genre of music.
Mm.
The least I can do is send a few films your way. I think that you would dig.
Yeah, I would love that. I love Philip K. Dick. He's
Hmm.
a Chicagoan, so like one of the best science fiction writers ever, probably. And a lot of the movies that I like are based on his writings. So I think a lot of what he wrote is now starting to become more, widely known.
Yes,
Uh, but I think that's really good.
I read for the first time just a few years back. Finally read "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep,"
Mm.
which is the novel that Blade Runner is based on,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's
it's
fun because
it's
there's
fun.
Blade Runner is clearly there, but it's set in San Francisco of the future, not L.A. They
Mm.
don't call them replicants; they call them androids. Um,
Right.
but it's all pretty much the same thing. There's a few characters that ended up kind of getting merged and composited for the film,
Mm.
but that is also, and in addition to it being one of my favorite films ever, it's one of my favorite novels ever. And you're right, no,
Oh yeah.
Hollywood was aware of him obviously back in the early '80s, but it seems like now they're even digging into his really obscure stuff, which is
Yep.
so fun, without a doubt.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that he died kind of penniless. Like he wasn't really recognized, and I think that's always a worry of mine. Like, I probably will die before anyone truly recognizes anything I've done, but maybe that's just a rite of passage.
Well,
We'll
you know
see.
what? This is an interesting point, and I was recording with Justin yesterday. We had gone and seen the re-release of Yoshiaki Kawajiri's 1993 film, and it's an epic one that's up there with Akira and Ghost in the Shell. Ninja Scroll was in theaters for a limited, just for like 3 nights, and we went and saw it because we just happened to be reviewing Kawajiri's films, and we're like, what are the odds that this just happens to go back into the theaters? What's interesting because that film, which was produced by his studio Madhouse, Madhouse was about to close its doors forever,
Mhm.
and he had pitched this idea of Ninja Scroll, and they're like, okay, let's do it, but we need to get it done now because if we don't have something to show for what we're doing, we got to close the doors and start looking for jobs. Well, he did it, ends up being his magnum opus. It ends up being sort of like of all of the works that he did, his most creatively fulfilling, like his dream project. And 31 years later, we're still talking about it. So it's, I also, what was interesting too, there was an interview just before the movie started. And some of the questions that were asked of him, it's like, what are you going to do next? Would you ever do a sequel to Ninja Scroll? People have completely forgotten that the dude's in his 80s now. Like he did, that was 93 that he dropped Ninja Scroll. And a point that I made to Justin and to the audience was, I get so tired of people not getting their flowers until either they're retired, almost dead, or dead. And so what I'm trying to tell everybody out there is, if there's a DJ like Van, if there is a filmmaker out there that maybe isn't as well known, there's a new singer out there named Gareth Donkin, Donkin. His first album is literally the second coming of the Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones era. It's unbelievable, and he's not getting any love. Point being, if you love Van, if you love these artists out there, hype them up, share their stuff online, tell people, listen to these people, check her out, check him out, because we've never been in a position before in human history where someone can be across the country, across the world, and you can dig up something like City Pop and bring it back to life. And people like Van are already influencing friends of mine that are becoming future funk DJs and are reinvigorating vaporwave and all that sort of stuff. So don't wait for people. Don't assume that because somebody's not top 40 or because somebody isn't a Hollywood film or somebody's not on the A list, that it's somehow less, because it's not. You love it. We love it. So talk about it. Share it as much as possible. Shout from the mountaintops about what you love. Like I said before, let your love lead, because when we do, these incredible artists like Van, they get heard. And so it's so important. And again, thank you, man, for.
I appreciate your words for sure. I think that's an amazing perspective that I wish more people shared. But it all starts with the individual, and I think what you're doing is amazing, and I'm really honored. Seriously, I really am. And thank you
Well,
for
here's the
your
thing, man. I mean, I can only hype you up because you had the strength of character to double down on something that most people would have said, "What are you doing? What city pop Japanese? What?" And now there are entire parties in cities across not just the country but the world that know about these. I mean, it seems like some of these people might have a new lease on. I mean, granted, their careers were 30, 40 years ago, but people that are sort of doing events now where they're doing maybe an evening of songs, and that is a direct result of the fact that you stuck to your love, stuck to your passion, and shared it. And that's every single person out there can take a lesson from that, man. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I look, I know you have a lot going on and all that, so I'm not going to keep you much longer. But I really appreciate. Again, I've known you for years now. Really loved what you did, what you've done. I'm really excited to see what you do next. So thank you for your time. But what would you say if there's? I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question before we close out. Is there anything that you're enjoying right now in the space of music, in the space of movies? And it doesn't have to be new movies. I'm 98% of what I watch is like 80s and older. Music, film, old TV shows. Is there anything that you are enjoying now that, I don't know, we could maybe share with the folks?
I recently saw. I'm a big horror movie fan, and I
Same.
really like deep ones. So I really thought Long Legs, which just came out, I think a couple months ago, was probably my most recent kind of favorite horror movie. There's just so much symbolism in it, and I really love that when they leave like a lot of Easter eggs for you to like do your research on, and you see how like in depth these kind of references are that they're throwing at you. Long Legs, I think, is probably my most recent favorite movie. I've been watching Stunning. It's like an A24 show about a robot, and in Japan, it's kind of kind of quirky, but I like A24 and what they do. So I recommend Sunny. Yeah, I love that show. And music wise, I don't know. I've been listening. I tend to listen to older stuff all the time unless something that really catches my ear comes on. But that's just been less and less lately. I don't know why. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's good stuff being made all the time. It's just finding it, and getting, referred to it, which is a difficult thing.
I
You
love
gotta
I love the
trust
thrill of
someone's
the hunt
opinion.
though. I love finding something that's like new but really good because I kind
Mm,
of love sharing it with people. So
yeah.
is it frustrating that it doesn't get enough shine? Yes, but it is great when you find stuff and you can share it with
Mm,
people. But no, that's all. I haven't seen Long Legs. It's on my list of all the like the new horror that I wanted to see this year.
mm.
If you like Long Legs, I really recommend Cuckoo or Cuckoo, Cuckoo.
Mm.
It's I think Neon produced it, but it feels like an
Oh,
A24. It's really good.
okay.
It's
I mean, there's
setting.
similar kinds of vibes, Neon and
Yes.
A24.
Yeah, no, I think you dig it a lot. And like I said,
Mm.
offline, I'll send you a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh yeah, I would love
Now
that
that I
for
know that
sure.
not only you love Blade Runner and Kubrick, but you like horror really is it's not so much like gory stuff that I like, but horror is it's the most malleable, most flexible genre we have right now.
Mm,
And we're kind of in a horror renaissance, really have been since the first
mm,
Ring. But anyways, I could go on.
yeah.
Uh, thank you, Van,
Mm.
for coming on.
No,
Thank
thank you.
sharing, kind of your history, your story here. We will keep an eye on you. We can find you if we're in the city of Chicago at Murasaki, at Whistler, Nine Bar, any other venues that you might have coming up.
Just those three are my usual spots. So
Okay,
yeah,
great. And if somebody wants to follow you on social media, you're on Instagram.
on Instagram and Facebook. You can check my website. Sometimes I post events there too.
And what is the address of the website?
www.vanpaugam.com.
On Pagam. Okay, great.
Mhm.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for coming
Yeah.
on. I will. I'm gonna hit you up soon. There's some stuff that I want to get past you or share with you, bounce off you because you're a unique, creative, interesting dude, and I value
Thank
your
you.
input. So we'll talk real soon, man. But in the meantime,
Thank you so
take
much.
care, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon. Thank you so much.